Welcome to PHRC Raising the Standard, the outstanding television show for Paducah Human Rights Commission, right here in the award-winning Paducah, McCracken County. And our guests today are representatives of Community Coming Together, co-founder Mr. Andre Shumpert, and faith advisor, I like to call it faith advisor, Reverend Warren. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you for making time. Mr. Shumpert, I know that you were able to get off from work today, huh? Or part of the day?
Part of the day.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And Reverend Warren, have you been tearing up pulpit furniture lately?
Yes, actually, I've been taking over Reverend Moore's church since his absence.
Where is that?
That's Way of Christ.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I know you're doing an outstanding job, and he has placed his confidence in you, and I know everything's going to be everything. All right, let's talk about some meat and the potatoes of Community Coming Together. Mr. Shumpert, if you would, share how it came about, how it was birthed, and then go on and tell us about how your organization is made up. For example, who is your other co-founder, and take your time and give the names of your board members and whatever committees that you have.
Well, first of all, we started from, well, me and Anthony Ellison, Busy Banks. We was out on the basketball court, the annual court, and we just started talking about, you know, hey, what about hood to hood basketball? So we just started getting on Facebook, calling people out, and from then on, we there. Well, here we were where we at now. Well, then, you know, our board members. First of all, we got Busy Banks as the CEO, myself as the president.
And you and Mr. Banks are the co-founders.
Co-founders.
All right.
And we got Miss Connie Dinkins as the secretary, Reverend Joe Warren, and Reverend Anderson as the faith advisory counselor.
Yes.
And
and Connie Dinkins is also a minister at 9th Street Tabernacle Ministries.
Yes.
And Reverend Anderson is the pastor at Greater Lincoln Heights Baptist Church.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And so, you know, from then on, it's just been great, you know, and we still moving.
What committees do you have, or do you have regular committees, or do you form them as needed?
Well, we got regular committees. You know, we stick with, like when it comes to his situations, whatever you need, he comes to me and Anthony, and we just all sit down as a group at a meeting, and we just talk about how to, you know, we got Lamar Eskew as our event coordinator. She gathered up all the information and put the event together, and then we all just coordinated like that.
Great, great. Well, Reverend Warren, how long have you been with Community Coming Together?
I actually started along about June or July of last year.
Almost a year.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Yes,
and I know they just love you.
Oh, I love them.
I've watched you interact with the co-founders and the board members and what have you, and other people at different events. And I want you to know that I've been on this road for a minute or two.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know when people are genuine, and I know when people genuinely care about the mission and the people that you're serving, and I know that you genuinely care about this community.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to thank you, and I thank God for you. What are some of the things that have touched you tremendously since you've been associated with Community Coming Together?
Basically, what touches me is their hearts. The Bible tells me that prayer and everything has to originate from the heart. And these young people has basically taken their time, their talents, their ministries, and have basically took this city by storm. And I tell them all the time, but always make sure you realize something, that you're not doing it for yourselves. You have to keep the focus on who's in charge and who's in control and in charge of you.
Yes.
And never to get the big head, never get too proud to think that it's centered around one or two people in this group. Because the Bible says also, there's strength in numbers, but also together we stand, but divided we fall. So therefore we have to focus on group activities, and when we do this, my thing, I love youth. These young men and young women, when I first come in contact with them, they was looking for spiritual advice to get them from point A to point B. They had the community services and all that stuff down pat, but there were some areas in their life they needed help with.
Yes.
So myself and Reverend Anderson decided we'd come on board and kind of help them to kind of focus, get their focus where it needed to be focused on. Because first of all, it's got to be God first. Anything you do, you put God and His Son first, and then everything falls into place. So they're focusing now, and their talents, they're using their talents as a group, not as individuals. That's got to be important. And as they do it, people begin to see them.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
it's spreading.
That's why we thinking.
Yes, I tell you what, my head was spinning. And in the beginning, when I started hearing about you, I think I met both of you and Brother Banks and Brother Pickett at a Rosa Parks event.
I thought it
The
was.
Power of One.
It wasn't a
Now-
racial taboo.
No, I met y'all first at the Rosa Parks, the
Yeah,
Power of One event at, there was, hosted at Broadway United Methodist.
Okay.
And I remember sitting across the table from Brother Pickett and a beautiful young lady that was sitting next to him. Shout out. And I remember Mr. Cleary, I call him Mr. President, the president of the NAACP, introducing y'all, and y'all came up and did some things and shared some things, and as a group, and most of you except for Minister Connie Dinkins and Brother Andre, I knew you from a distance because I was acquainted with your
My
dad
dad.
and your siblings, and I remember how interested I was right away, and began to talk with Mr. Pickett about the possibility of y'all coming on the TV
Right.
show and my radio show, and that's how we started that way. But Brother Andre, I watched you grow up a little bit, and you didn't even know
No.
it, running around here with your little curly hair.
I still
trying
got
to
it.
trying to be grown. And I'm so proud of you, and I know your parents are. Well, what were in the first year that you were formulated? What were some of the initial events that you held here in the city?
Our main event was, well, How to Raise a Man, and it was a hard task, but we actually decided to do it, and we did it at that's when we brought him in, and
Yes.
we did it at Starfish Ministry, and we just had 3 speakers, T. Simone, DeMonte Orr, and Reverend Anderson,
Thompson.
Aaron Thomas, and they just spoke on basically about parenting, how to raise a man. A father couldn't raise, how to mother raising a son by herself, and like I said last time, it ain't easy to raise myself, and I seen my mother raise me and my three other 2 brothers, and she was strong.
And she had her hands full.
She had her
didn't
hands
she?
full.
And even with 2 parents in the home, both parents have their hands full, because trying to raise your children is not a single household issue, because there are so many forces outside the walls of the home.
Right.
And so our children come in contact with all sorts of people and situations and things, and it's still difficult. And I know your father's a minister. And even with ministers' children are faced with the same issues in the world.
Sometimes worse.
There's no separate set of issues. And so even ministers have to be concerned about the same things.
Well, I can't say my dad was never in my life. I can say, I grew up with him inside another church. It was just my mom and my dad was just separated, but they both brought me up in the church.
Yeah.
But, on my mom's side, I had her brothers and sisters like Terry Shumper that played in the major leagues,
Yes.
Junior Shumper that, have a wonderful family.
Yeah.
And, they all told us the ins and outs how to be men.
Yeah.
But my mom grew us, did what she could as a woman to grow us up, but it
Yes.
takes a man to grow the son up.
Yes. It takes men to raise men, and women, we try real hard. We try real hard, and I don't know what folk do who ain't got Jesus. I really don't know.
Amen.
Because with faith, you still have to be careful in the choices that you make as adults.
Right.
What you say, what you don't say, what you do, what you don't do. You know, there are still some things you really have to adhere to. You can't take anything for granted, even walking around with a big old Bible.
Yeah, we have to take into that scripture in the Bible where it's in Proverbs 22:6, where it says, when you train up a child, if he departs from it, if you instill it into him to the point to where he understands it, when he grows old,
Yeah.
he'll come back.
He'll come back.
He'll come
Oh,
back.
can I get
Yes,
a witness?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
He
He'll come back.
and she and they will come back.
Yes, ma'am.
I just bet when you and Brother Banks and maybe one or two others were kind of talking about hood to hood and things like that, that your first emphasis was on all the children.
Yes.
Yeah, well, when we first started talking about hood to hood, it was basically just bringing people out. But then we just started seeing multiple people coming out
Yeah.
from, like, when we had Rock the Block, we had, and he knows there's probably about 500 people out there at Blackburn.
Oh, my.
And yeah, and when we seen all the communication with the blacks and whites and the kids talking to, it's like we making a difference here. And so, you know, we always say it ain't all about blacks, it ain't all about
Right.
whites, it
Absolutely.
ain't it's everybody. You know, the name speaks for itself. And like now we are actually trying to do a softball game, as you
Yes.
see, and we trying to bring everybody out to Memorial Day, and you know, it's just not about just
Yeah.
one race or one thing. It's just, or religion. It's just everybody.
Yes.
That's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all bring your church fans because it's going to be hot. Put a hat on. But let me know well in advance of you putting the final plans together, because Paducah Human Rights Commission board may decide that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to be a co-sponsor in some way or another. So be sure to keep us in mind.
I need to mention something else.
Yes,
I
sir.
mentioned something about the first How to Raise a Man. Well, in the future, sometime we expect to do another How to Raise a Man 3.
Yes.
That's going to be, we made the second one at Reverend Anderson's church,
Yes.
Reverend Anderson's church at Great Lincoln Heights. And we would just, you know, we want to just make this the grand finale for that
Yes,
one.
yes.
Unless we can make it an annual thing, keep letting it grow on. Because, like I said, everybody need to learn how to raise a man.
Yes, yes.
And all, you know, it takes God to raise a man.
Oh, my.
To help raise that man.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
You know, like you said, faith is everything.
Yes, and we need for our boys to become men,
Men, yes.
boys to men. You know, we really need it, because God intended for men to be the leaders.
Yes, ma'am.
He didn't intend for them to lord over women, but He intended for men to lead humankind, and to lead humankind the way He intended, not
Right.
the way they decided to. And while God created man and woman equally
Right.
in His image, with a level of His Holy Spirit on the inside of each, a level of His intelligence on the inside of each, He also created men to be able to do some things better than women, and some things women to do better than men, and then everything else we were equipped to do
Right.
all well. And I just believe that our society is going to be a whole lot better if boys are raised to be men and not just adult males. They can become adult males on their
All day
own,
long.
but they need some help becoming
Yes,
men.
ma'am.
And so I honor the order of God.
Right.
God, family, ministry. That's His perfect order.
Yes, ma'am.
And any other way, we are out of order.
Yes.
Well, that's
ma'am.
what he always teaches. He always, you know, when we sit down in a meeting, he always, the main thing that sticks to me, and I think the whole community coming together group can always say, he always mentioned family comes first. Make sure you do something with your family, because, I mean, without family, what are you? You know.
And here's what I often say from the pulpit or behind a podium, is that if you're so busy doing ministry and your family's raggedy, you ain't doing ministry.
Yes, ma'am.
You're going through the motions. You're not doing ministry. And God is not pleased. And the word, as Reverend, as you would know, is that in the Bible we're told that God created us for His good pleasure,
Yes, ma'am.
not for our good pleasure.
right.
So it's God, family, and then if you get those two right, you're going to have some out-of-sight ministry.
Right, right.
And it's going to last.
It's gonna
Like
last.
community coming together.
Oh, we still standing.
Yes. Well, let's talk a little bit more about some other events. Some that you've done in the past, some that you've got coming up, and we don't need to worry about the dates, but some of your past events and some of your upcoming events.
Okay, we got one coming up here in the near future. It's called Fine China, and this is basically
China.
yes, ma'am. It's
I'm fine, China.
and basically what this event is doing is teaching middle school age girls to high school to know that they're not paper plates,
Wow.
that they're fine china, and we have to instill into these young people and make them understand that they were given a name at birth. And that name will carry them for the rest of their lives. God doesn't create anything that he didn't say it was good.
My.
And so we're trying to teach these young girls that you are somebody. No matter what society, what people may level you as, you are somebody. And you have to realize that. And it basically started understanding yourself and who you are.
Fine china
Yes.
and not paper plates.
Yes, ma'am.
Where'd the
All right.
name come from?
And my wife told me not to do this. But my wife is, she gets inspired a lot of times when she says, I get my inspirations when I'm in the shower. And she was in the shower one day and this just hit her. The first one was last year and they had a total of something like 75 girls
How about
to
that?
show up at that one. This year we're expecting even more. But it was such an impact on these young girls that they couldn't wait to this year.
Wow.
They wanted to get back into it, and it's not going to only stop here. Come October, there will be another one. And we're trying to not only steal it into the young girls, but the young boys. Last summer, we threw a big sleepover for the boys at the middle school, and we had a total of what?
Almost
70, 80 kids
almost
show
100
up for that
kids.
one.
Wow.
And in this thing, it was an all-night thing, but we taught them basketball, but every hour they had a spiritual class. They had a mentoring class. They had something to teach them that you're here to have fun, but you're here to learn something.
Isn't that something?
And daddies, it was so amazing. We had young men that walked in about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning just off the street and found out it was happening. Teenage, some like 18 to 22 years old just walked in, started interacting with the boys. And that's what it's going to take. As a young boy, I grew up in a small community. And the older men that had been in the wars and had been through a lot of things, there was an old bench that they set up in the backyard. And we was required at certain times of the day, and we would sit on those benches and they would instill life into us. And they basically told us that you first of all, you have to understand who you are and understand where you come from and where you're headed.
Yes.
And if you can figure out those things, all those things in between, if you put the faith, and it says faith of a mustard seed, it don't take much, just faith of a mustard seed. And once you realize that, the Bible teaches us that we can move mountains. We can move those obstacles, all those things out of our way that we need to get out of our way in order to get to where God wants us to be. He doesn't give us our gifts and talents and ministries for no reason.
That's right.
They're for a purpose.
That's right. And boys and girls, and adults as well, are hungry to be valued.
Yes, ma'am.
We were made to be valued, and when we're not, it tears everything apart.
Yes, ma'am.
We're hungry to be valued.
Yes, ma'am.
And you never get too old, and I'm kind of cautious on using the word old. I don't think anybody gets old. I think we just get older.
You get better.
But even older men and women, we crave to be valued. And often, even on our best days, sometimes people will still devalue us because they're hurting and they're broken and they're scarred and they're wounded and they don't know how to do better. And so I thank God that you are open to other adults becoming involved, but they got to come right.
Yes, ma'am.
They got to come right. Mr. Shumpert, there have been some things that you've done on the value of marriage, why marriage is important.
marriage is important.
You've done that because we can be in relationships, and unfortunately, most relationships are really tore up from the flow up. Yes, sir.
Let me just say, the reason why we chose why is marriage so important is because, I mean, you got some men around here shacking up, going around, and treating these ladies like, and I'm a witness. I'll be honest. I could be one of them, but I just say, with God, ain't no relationship gonna be good.
Right.
And
without Him, without God.
Well, without God.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
And all I'm saying is, we thought about it. We looked around the community like, hey, that's a topic we need to be talking about because, it's a sin to be
Yeah.
shacking up.
Yes.
And
yes, and that's exactly what it is.
Like now, I'm taking the advice as a man, and I hope she watching. But Lamar Eskew one day gonna be my wife.
Woohoo, Sister
And-
Eskew. I see you, girl.
See how
I
you
see you.
smiling. Thank God.
That's been my goal. I mean, I try to. That's been Reverend Anderson is our goal is to teach these young men that if they're precious enough to live with, they're precious enough to marry.
All right.
So you have to
I'm
understand.
taking that advice.
You have to
Yes.
understand that.
Yes.
Every day,
Understand.
like one day, I just want to grow old with her and just make it right.
And you know, wouldn't it be awesome that after you and Mr. Banks is getting married
Oh,
next
yeah,
year?
next year.
After the co-founders are married, wouldn't it be wonderful if both of you did a seminar on your journey to that point? Wouldn't that be awesome? And your wives
You know, when we first
be right there with you?
When we first started, I just say I didn't think we would be in this position. You know, when we first started, Lamar wasn't never really like thinking I was serious about it, so she wouldn't come along to these events with me. But then until we start getting popular on TV and everything, you know, I think God works really well. And you know,
Yes, and of course, as you're preparing to lead her as the husband, not her property owner, but as her priest. You're going to be the priest of the marriage, and she's going to be the what? Priestess.
Oh.
And what you're allowing God to do is to prepare you to be just that.
Right.
And then. But I just want to plant that seed. You and Brother Banks and your wives, y'all
It's
do
coming.
a seminar, just the four of you. You do a seminar.
It's coming.
And do it like 3 or 4 times a year so everybody can come who wants to come.
It's coming.
But isn't that wonderful? I'm so excited. I'm going to have my big old wedding hat on and everything. I'm clapping like I haven't had any
We need a
home
caterer,
training.
too.
All right. Well, how about some of the other events that have helped you to strengthen the relationships between the children that people almost threw away to now the children feeling valued, and now how they feel about the adults in the community? Talk a little bit about that,
Well,
Mr. Shumker.
I say a lot of events we did last year, like Sunday's events, when we did our, and I never think, Amwood Day,
Yes.
it brought all the kids out.
Yes.
We gave them, you know, we had Duncan Boo, we had the fire department come out, we had, you know, when the kids came out and the parents seen that, that made them look at us as like, these guys are really serious.
Yes. And you gave hope, didn't you?
Gave hope.
You gave them hope. You let them know that what they hear about the police is not all true. What they hear about the grown folk and the church folk in the community is not all true. There are awesome people in the community who love them unconditionally and who care about their present and their future.
I know this year, the Paducah Housing Authority are doing our Amwood Day, and they're bringing out, well, they teamed up with us, and they wanted us, you know, they want us to help them. You know, they're bringing out, they got vendors, you know, showing that the police department is not an enemy.
Right.
You know, they got actually the whole Amwood Day planned out.
And the officer who is coordinating it from the police department side,
I forgot his name.
she came to the mayor's anti-bullying task force meeting. And so the task force, the anti-bullying task force, is going to also help out.
Right.
Some of us are volunteering to come and do whatever she wants us to do, whatever the police department wants us to do. So we're looking forward to that as well.
They're also going, I know they got some transferring from other housing authority sites to come to the event.
Awesome.
So
Awesome. Also, we have just a few minutes left, and I want to ask, what are some of the events, other than the one you just mentioned, what is your vision for other events coming in the future?
What he don't realize yet, there will be How to Raise a Man 3.
Okay.
And it's probably going to take place at Mount Moriah.
Okay.
We're trying to move it around to different places.
Oh, that's good.
Eventually, I'm hoping one day we can take it and put it in the park.
Oh,
where
that would be
people that don't like
fantastic.
coming to the churches, don't like to be involved in certain settings, put it out into the open where they'll have an opportunity where they don't have an excuse. But not only that, we're hoping to have our boys lock-in also for the young boys coming up again here
You
pretty
can
soon.
never have enough of those,
Yes,
can you?
ma'am.
No.
Financial workshops. We did one this past spring, and people ask, why a financial workshop? And the way I look at it is, if you got a happy home and you're not dealing with the finances, and we know finances can break a home bad.
Yes.
And I teach these young people, home, home, home.
Yeah.
Charity starts at home first. And once you get those things situated, then you take it out in the community, because we have a light within us. That spirit that Jesus left with us when he left going back to his Father. And that light is what people are looking at.
Yes.
And if you go around with a frown on your face and you're disappointed all the time and you feel like that the whole world is on your shoulders all the time, people see that.
And that,
So-
that helps me with a segue before we say goodbye. And that is having financial peace, developing good relationships and a good view of law enforcement and the court system. Here at Paducah Human Rights Commission, this is one reason, one big reason why we wanted you on the show, is because people need to know that there are ways to decrease crime, not by incarceration, but by providing programs and opportunities to help children and adults to change the way they think about their freedom, their well-being, their relationships, and authority. And so thank you very much. You've helped us to bring that point home. And I know we've got to say bye-bye. We've had a good time. You guys are wonderful. Community coming together. Make sure you keep up with Facebook and make sure you know when to go. Thank you.